September meeting. We are meeting this evening by a process of virtual, and would like to read a statement to you and would like to have this as a motion when I get through reading. This meeting of the Public Safety Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Do I have that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have that motion. Have a second? And have the second. Will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you for that. It's good to have each and every one of you here this evening for this meeting and its importance in what we have. At this time, I'll ask my Vice Chairman for the approval of our minutes.
Chairman, I have read and reviewed the minutes from the last meeting, find them to be in order, and make a motion to accept.
Had a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made. Commissioner Phillips, call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Very good. We'll get started here. I would like to say one thing here. I see the sheriff sitting out here, and before he gets back to the office or gets a call about this, I've got to let y'all know this. Trying to get here this evening, as I was leaving the house, I was in the process of setting my burglar alarm. And I had it set, and then I was going to my truck, and I get a call from my state representative, and we were talking, and I noticed I didn't have any of my materials. So I go back into the house, and the burglar alarm is still like it's setting. I get my materials, get back in the truck, take off. And all of a sudden, my cell phone is calling me from a neighbor across the road, a neighbor down the road, and my son's calling me. So I called and said, what's going on? Said, well, the security company's looking for you. And said they are sending the sheriff's department out there to find you. So then I had to go in the process of hanging up on my state representative, and then I'm trying to find my security company to send our guys back and stop them from coming out there, because I can just see them coming out there and I'm not there, or they don't know if I'm in or out. So got them turned around. I get back and I got my neighbors all over the place. So I've started a very exciting night in my neighborhood tonight for public safety, and we've discussed burglar alarms a lot of years up here, so it can happen to anybody, and I can understand that. But this is the first time this has happened to me like this, so if I seem disorganized tonight, you may understand why, but it's amazing what your state representative can do to you. But we got our business taken care of and whatever, so we'll move on with what we've got to do. I think our first one up is Correctional Work Center report. Superintendent Pope. Okay.
In front of you we'll have our report for this month. No significant changes. Our population's up just a little bit more than it was last month. Total combined savings using inmate labor this past month was $67,048. Our work release program is going good. All the positions are filled. And in that report, you'll also find our board meeting minutes.
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley, call the roll.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips. Yes. Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Chairman, I believe last month Commissioner P asked about the approximate cost per year for a facilitator for that mechatronics program. Just to give a little bit of a broad estimate here, upon the research that I did, those instructors or facilitators can run anywhere from about $15 an hour up to $35 an hour. So at $4 a week, 52 weeks a year, that would be a part-time position. At $15 an hour, it'd be about $3,120 a year. And then I have increments all the way up to $35 an hour, which would be about $7,280 a year.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Commissioner P, do you have any more questions, or?
No, I appreciate you getting that information for me, though.
Very welcome.
Any other questions anyone else have? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, juvenile detention. Good evening.
Evening. Before you have our reports for the month of August 2020. Probably the most notable thing is going to be that our Tipton County has not submitted their payment yet, but I don't have any belief that that's going to be problematic. We'll make sure that it gets here. As usual, if you have any questions about any of the material in front of you, I'll happily answer any of the questions. It didn't make the meeting notice, but I do have a couple of MOUs after we discuss the report.
Any questions on the report?
Motion to approve, Mr.
Have
Chairman.
the motion approved. Commissioner P, do we have a second? Second. Commissioner Gammon, call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, I believe you have the MOUs.
Okay, I do have two MOUs for emergency relocation assistance. We have our primary relocation, which is going to be, of course, dependent upon the situation, but is the Correctional Work Center. This is the same MOU that we've brought up here for several years now, signed by Superintendent Cope. And then additionally, I have our secondary relocation site, which is the Rutherford County Agricultural Extension Office, signed by Mr. Tuggle. Again, the same MOU that we've been bringing up here for several years. And we just like to do this every year, just in case that anything changes within these departments where we are no longer going to be able to have that MOU with them and give them an opportunity to make changes if necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve these relocation agreements.
Okay, we have a motion to approve these agreements. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. There, Commissioner Serino, call the roll.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. Paul's report.
Good evening. You have the report in front of you for August. You can see that we had 526 animals come into the shelter. Our live release rate for dogs was 94.3%. Our cats were 92%. and overall, we had a 92% live release. We had 145 animals that were reclaimed through our surgery program during the month, and 47 cats were released through our TNR programs. 71 animals remained with us at the end of the month in the shelter. We had over 2,400 people come in and over 2,000 calls and voicemails for the month. Officers handled 1,665 calls and they traveled 12,331 miles. Year to date, with 2 months, fiscal year to date, with 2 months under our belt, you can see that we've had 1,155 animals in the shelter. Our live release rate is 91.7%. We've had 4,500 people come in and 4,200 calls and voicemails. I see a typo there. It should be 3,438 calls that the officers completed, traveling 25,000 miles. On our rabies exposure and bite report, we had 46 bites reported for the month, so it was a very heavy month regarding bites. One of those animals was tested, did not come back as positive, and then you can see that we had 19 other exposures. 4 of those were tested, and none came back positive there as well. The very last page of your report is just the graph that I've been including for the last several months, just to kind of give you a visual where you can see the live outcomes, the euthanasia, and the other outcomes there, so you can see just a different way of looking at that same data that I presented earlier.
Any questions on the report?
Move to accept.
Motion to accept. Have a second?
Second.
Second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Sheriff's report.
First, if y'all have any questions about the report or how to deal with that.
Questions on the report? Is there anything that you see that's out of the ordinary or that?
No, sir. Our count's still a little, we like our count right now, which is running around 750 daily, so that's good. I can say we've tested over 1,100 inmates. We have no positive currently in our jail.
I noticed that I believe there was a positive newspaper report a week or so ago concerning the COVID situation at the jail and that we have there at the detention center, which is
We had no infractions either on our report.
very good. Very good. Any questions on the report from the Sheriff's Department? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the report.
Move to approve.
Approved by Commissioner Gurley. Have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Serino. Can we call the roll?
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. And now I believe you have some amendments.
Again, we have been awarded, well, this is a new grant from THSO. It's a $50,000 grant that is strictly for the new community-based traffic safety enforcement education program or police traffic services. We received 50. I need to appropriate that into overtime and benefit line items. And we'll also purchase some radars with that.
Are there matching funds on any of that?
No, sir.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Commissioner Phillips, call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. And I believe you have one more.
And again, this is a THSO grant for our teen driver safety. I believe this has been around now for at least 5 years for us. It's $18,000, and again, that would be going into benefits, in-service, and other supply material for our driver education for teenagers. And no matching.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Phillips, call the roll.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Y'all approved this several weeks ago, or months ago, right after budget. We get matching. We do a grant with the city. It's for about $58,000, and we split that grant 50-50. We did receive that money. Our part will be $28,362, and we will buy night vision with that. I don't have the amendment yet, but what I need for y'all to approve that we can put that in an amendment form to go through budget and finance without me having it here. Reba couldn't get it done in time, and she's the one that usually puts that in amendment form. But it will be used all in 716, which is law enforcement equipment.
Okay, a motion to accept. Do we have a
Second.
second? Second, Commissioner Sherino, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
The last, and I'm going to request to again apply for the State Criminal Alien Assistant Program, which is SCAP. This is will be our third year doing this. I know when I came back, I think we got $4,000. We went up to $23,000, and we got $52,000 last year. So we want to apply for this again, and that will go straight back into our detention area, whatever we receive.
Asking to apply.
I'm asking to apply for it,
Asking
yes.
to apply.
There's no matching.
Okay. We have a motion to allow them to apply. Have a second?
Second.
Okay. Call roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you.
I've got a question. When I came in, I'm sorry. How's Chief Grissom doing?
Well, he's tomorrow, so spirits are up, everything's good. But that will be tomorrow. And we'll let y'all know.
Request prayers for him. He had a little health issue.
Okay. The mayor has something.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think the sheriff would like to invite the sheriff to come up, and sheriff and I have been talking. He has expressed a dire need for a position for GIS and how important it is at this point in time. I know it's in the middle of the budget year, but I'm going to let him explain. And I believe Sonia is prepared to talk about this position that he's requesting for GIS. Sheriff, I do support this, Mr. Chairman.
What this
Yes, sir.
is a geographic information system specialist, and what the need is as we've moved in more and more to the computer age, our computer-aided dispatch system operates off of a mapping system. This helps us, the fire and ambulance, in the dispatching of our units. And what this is the development of map overlays that overlays our CAD system. So when we pull up a call, and be it fire or ambulance, it pinpoints exact location, and then it also pinpoints where our equipment is or what the closest equipment is to dispatch. What we've seen is an increased need in this because everything we're doing now is now being geo-driven or map-driven. And we're lacking. One of the big problems that we've got is interfacing with the city. The map system that we use, what we call city Zone 5, is Zone 5. I don't have cars assigned to Zone 5. But the ambulance service has stations in the city in Zone 5, and so it's very critical, because their map system is very different from ours, that we have the proper overlay, so when the call's transferred, they're seeing the call from an ambulance standpoint and not from a police standpoint. The other problem that we run into is in interfacing with the city. As they annex, then all the maps have to be updated, not just the city maps, because we're using different mapping systems. These maps have to be updated so we can identify the proper equipment and the proper location of someone in need. And this has become a very big and increasing problem. We were going to ask for this in the last budget year, but looking at what the situation was as far as the budget, we decided to withdraw the total request. But as we've moved into the year, we're now seeing that the need is there, that we're going to have to come back and ask for your permission to be able to explore and move forward with this position. This person, whoever it would be, would not only work with our RMS or our record management system, they need to know and understand our CAD system. The CAD system is a 26-week training program. So there's a lot of knowledge that has to go with this position. So they not only have to be understand our computer-aided dispatch system, but they also need to understand mapping and GIS system. I know we've got a mapping person with the county, but on the other side, because of the interfaces that we've got at the sheriff's office, the agreements that we've got with TBI and FBI, I cannot let anybody outside of into those systems. So they've got to be certified to be able to get into those systems and interface, and that's why we need it at the sheriff's office, where we can control who is into the system. But it would be not for just us, because we do have the CAD system for ambulance, fire, and us. It all is controlled at our operation, and that's why we're asking for it in our budget. But it's for fire, us, and ambulance. So it would be for all inclusive. So that's what we're asking for. I think Sonia has worked up some information as far as what specifically we're talking for in terms of budget dollars.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got another topic here later on. Possibly are we going to talk about that tonight? Of the GIS is under other business tonight.
Yep, that's a GIS Resolution Commissioner, and Steve is here from 911 to talk about that.
Right, and these two things go together, so to speak. I mean,
they're kind of do and kind of don't, because
kind of do and kind of don't. But we've got to get to where we're all kind of on the same page as far as seeing the right map. And I know a few months ago, Smyrna had put a sign out to annex to parcel, and I pulled up for some reason or other, I'd pulled up the county map, and so it didn't show it annexed. And so I called and I talked to them, and our GIS and everything, and it's just a matter of, once again, whether it's up here in this building or whether it's in your building, of getting all those overlays, because depending on what you're wanting to look at, you don't see the same map. These are like laying just literally overlays, except it's done technology-wise, instead of doing something in terms of a visual on a table. And they said, you know, we're a little bit behind. It'll be updated within a week or so, and that's fine. But it's even more important when it comes to public safety. You've got to see the right thing. You've got to, in 1980, that's 40 years ago, I saw something like this in Phoenix, Arizona. Tennessee hadn't even thought about GIS at the time, and they were doing it out there then. And I thought, you know, well, it's here now. We've finally caught up. But we've got to stay caught up. We're in the 21st century. So you've got to know your resources, whether it's fire, EMS, law enforcement, and a lot of times multi-discipline types of resources. So I'm surprised we don't already have someone, and I'm all for it.
But, Mr. Chairman, kind of what brought this to light to me within the last 30 days is Public Safety Director Clark was talking with Mark Folks, fire chief, and there was some discussion about us responding and them not being notified, et cetera. It's been that tit for tat been going on for some time. And just as they continue, so Chris said, send me the map that you're talking about where we responded, and ended up, he sent the map and their map didn't match with our map. And what the sheriff was talking about is everybody's been operating in different silos and not sharing. And of course the cities are annexing more out into the county. And you know, a cell phone doesn't know where that line is. You know, when you're driving down the road and you want to call 911, it pings to wherever the closest tower is, and that's where it goes. And of course, the sheriff being a primary PSAP, you know, he calls based on his map, not Murfreesboro's map. And so I believe there was a meeting today, Sheriff, you all were talking about the CAD to CAD between the city and the county that we're working on that should have been implemented several years ago. But I think that's working in the right direction. However, by having someone, this specialist that the sheriff is asking for, it will eliminate some of these problems that we're having on those mapping GIS coordinates, so we can get the right devices or the right department to the right people at the right time.
I'm sorry.
That's why I support it.
The mayor's very correct in what he's saying, and one of the problems that we run into is on the annexations is we've not always been notified. Of course, if there's an annexation, we have got to update our map. One of the other problems that we run into where this person would interface with the city is, and we've been in discussions with the city, is what we call center point annexation and center point addressing, where the city would center point, and that's fine. The street may be in the city, but the houses on both sides are in the county. And so therefore, if our mapping system is not updated and we coordinate with all the entities on this, then we're dispatching not only the wrong equipment, but the wrong, either city or county, we're dispatching the wrong person. So what this will do will aid us in making sure that we're getting the call to the person or persons that's going to respond. So it's a very crucial job.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Pete.
Just a question. Is not the city of Murfreesboro also a primary CPAP? Yes. As far as receiving dispatches?
They are, for the city.
Okay, so there shouldn't be a problem with them dispatching with their own maps, right? As far as the city of Murfreesboro goes.
Well, it's a totally separate mapping system, and one of the problems that we ran into is, if you'll remember back in 17, our CAD systems were mirrored, and we were actually operating off of the city CAD system. They would go in and correct their map, and when they did, of course, what it would do would nullify what we had in our system, because it would override. For example, on the interstate, it would take off all the mile markers because they don't respond to the interstate. Well, we do. So
Understand, and I understand where you're coming from. I just wanted to point out, the city also receives these emergency calls as a primary. So if anything, with us having the wrong map, we might double dispatch. Is that correct or not?
well, it gets into that or a dispute as the wrong entity was dispatched, and that's been some of the problem that we've had in the past. Yes, the city does have their primary, but they are operating off city map overlay. The city map overlay does not work for our ambulance service because it's a different look at the city, and they respond differently, and they have different zones than what we've got. So that's one of the problems that we run into. So that's why we operate under a separate map system.
Well, I just wanted to confirm that, as far as fire dispatch goes, Murfreesboro City receives those calls and they dispatch themselves, not us dispatching them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and they get the original call. Now, we may have a conflict there because our maps are not right, but all that would mean is we would also dispatch people to the same area. Is that correct?
Typically, or if we get into, for some reason, there's an equipment failure, or for some reason there's a call that comes in, what we call a misdirect, then we could end up, because of improper mapping, we could dispatch on it when actually it should have been a city call or vice versa. So that's
I understand that. The thing I'm trying to point out is that nobody is being stopped from going to a call.
No, there's somebody's dispatched. Now, whether it's the right entity or not, we're not holding up a dispatch trying to figure that out. Somebody will be dispatched.
I understand, but they are also dispatching themselves.
Correct. That in some instances, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Yeah, Sonia, is you?
So when the Sheriff's Office requested that we look into this, they gathered some information on what this position would do within their office. We also looked at our other positions across the county that are similar in nature. You've got your mapper, your GIS tech, your specialist, your analyst, just to see where this position would fall in the level of responsibility that it would be across the county. And this position, based on all the responsibilities, the education, the training, that this person would have to have, and also their background knowledge within the CAD system and also in law enforcement, just kind of understand that dynamic. It would fall between a specialist and a generalist, and we really believe that it would be more in the generalist level, which is a little bit higher level. Their responsibility is to make sure that our public safety people are all going to the right location, the right space, working with the other agencies within the county to make sure that they get, if a new subdivision's built, the streets are in there, so that we're sending people to the right location. So the pay grade would be between a 25 and a 29, depending on where it falls out with the education level. So a bachelor's plus 3 years of experience or a master's plus 1 is going to have a little bit different level. So based on where we're looking at for that to fall. So it would be in the 40s range for this type position at entry level.
Just a quick question. I will acquiesce to Commissioner Gurley and Commissioner Gammon. They know 1,000% more about the inner workings of that department than I do. And I'm going to support this, don't get me wrong, but we've had a long-standing understanding, nothing in writing, but don't come to us with new positions in the middle of a year when it could have been addressed at budget time. So my question is, budget time was just a couple of months ago, and I'm wondering why it wasn't addressed then and why we're asked to fill this position now. Maybe the mayor knows, and maybe he has an understanding that I don't.
Couple of things.
I think the sheriff said a moment ago that he had it in his budget. He planned it to bring it in his budget. And when I asked everybody to cut back with COVID, that was one of the things that they eliminated. And it wasn't until this discovery of our maps not matching with the city maps just within the last 30 days is when it brought it to the attention. And I wanted to err on the side of not letting someone get a proper 911 call and picking somebody up. I didn't want that on my shoulders between now and next budget year.
That's the perfect answer. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. P.
this may be a question for Preble or the sheriff, but especially in light of our inmate population, do we have the money in his budget that we could transfer if we decided to add this position and then pay for it out of their own budget for the rest of this year?
Answer is no at this time for the amount of time that we've got, because we've already gone into the hiring mode and got people in line and pipeline coming in on the positions that we had vacant. So we have actively been interviewing, and we've already made offers to people that will be coming in shortly on the vacant jobs that we had. So I would not be able to fund it for the amount of time that we've got for till the remaining part of the budget year. And of course, that's on as we know now. I mean, anything can change, but I don't see that looking at the budget as it presently is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and have a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. All right, Public Safety Director.
For August the 20th through the September the 23rd, again, we continue to address COVID-19, of course, from response to distribution of supplies, grant funding, questions, concerns, and those items with COVID-19. We supply a senior leadership report each day. And so that consumes a lot of our time, especially with the grant process that's coming. We work with Lisa Nolan's office, the grant writers, Carrie Clark in our office, and several other entities, and along with the mayor, with multiple grants that are coming in. I'd like to take note that on September the 12th, we had a flash flood to occur mainly in the north end of the county. The EOC was partially activated with several of our partners that came together to work this event. Along with that, we have to remember there was an active shooter event just prior to that morning. So everybody was pretty active and stirring, and there was a dramatic water rescue at Snail Shell Cave, and I'll let Larry maybe elaborate on that during his report. However, we were able to rescue 2 individuals inside that cave as water was rising and time was the essence. We had also some rescues that were in the north end, so I was on the phone with Chief Ronnie Beasley with the City of Laverne, and also Smyrna Fire Chief Bill Culberson at the time, along with Murfreesboro. So we coordinated those efforts, and everybody did a great job. We also moved our EMA from the Sheriff's Department dispatch to EMS, and that was mainly due to a reporting system that we have in place and that was already existing, and we can utilize that to have some type of reporting system that we can generate reports. We participated in the incident management training in September along with Murfreesboro Fire Department, also Murfreesboro Police Department, and Rutherford County Fire Department. That was 4 days worth of incident management training along with a software program that we currently have. I'm going to leave the radio report up to Mr. Peter, but also we're involved with several, myself have been involved with the mayors, city managers, and other personnel concerning interlocal agreements this month, and that's been back and forth negotiations and such to make sure that they are correct. And I believe entertain any questions.
I have one comment, one question. The north end, the flooding in the north end was probably the second highest I've seen it since the 2010 flood. There are places actually that got water over that I didn't see it then. It was a flash flood as opposed to a long-term flooding event, different scenario. But what the question I have is, were the people in Snail Shell there with permission of the Conservancy, or were they trespassing?
That was something to be determined. At that point, we wasn't concerned about trespassing as much as getting those out. I haven't had a conclusion to that report as far as whether they were trespassing or not. We utilized a lot of resources, and we had a lot of resources coming just due to the fact that that's a dangerous, when it's dry, the cave is dangerous within itself. Myself, I've conducted 3 rescues in there over my career, 14-mile system, water going into the cave, the mouth of the cave, so there's no telling where those people would end up if they've gotten cut loose within that system. We actually had Chattanooga on their way. I'm very familiar with their cave rescue team. However, our personnel, trained personnel, were able to make a dramatic rescue when time was critical. Did a fantastic job.
I think it was a great job, because I know when I was working for the county, we had some training things that involved both Chattanooga and Conservancy and local, and obviously learned some stuff and did a great job. But I just wonder where the ball fell down, because it's my impression that you're supposed to have permission from the Conservancy to be in that cave, and obviously I'm sure they would not have given permission on a day such as those people entered. So yeah, thank you.
Also, on that note, that same day, the active shooter event that happened on the interstate, and then we combined efforts with Coffee County. The sheriff was very involved in that situation, along with our fire and EMS. That area is very rural. However, a lot of things happen out there. It's a different area that we'd run a lot of calls out there.
Someone else have a question? Commissioner P?
Yeah, just a quick question for Chris. You mentioned that you changed your dispatch for to EMS for EMA. Does that include fire, or is that just EMA?
Fire is currently there. County Fire and County EMS, and now County EMA resides in that dispatch office. Normally when we're activated, it's activated by the CAD, so we get a text over our phones in the event. So when they strike the key, it's an automatic notification to us on certain types of calls. In the event that we are required to respond, either the responder themselves, once they get on the scene and determine that they need assistance from emergency management, or if the dispatch triggers a second text or a second phone call that would generate a response from our office.
So just so I've got this clear in my head, but our EMS is not a primary CPAP. So they were getting their information directly from whom? Sheriff's Department?
The Sheriff's Department, if it's a fire, and all of those get transferred to Rutherford County EMS, that will trigger fire, EMS, or EMA.
Okay, just want to have that clear in my head. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Have a motion to approve the report? So moved, right there.
Second.
Have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Garley, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Do you have a grant or?
Yes, sir. We have a 2020 Homeland Security Grant application. This grant is for $109,353. This is 100% reimbursement. This is an annual event that we request through Homeland Security. There are several different items that deals with law enforcement, EMS, and also emergency services as a whole, such as urban search and rescue equipment. And we're requesting to apply for this grant.
Mr. Chairman, is that the same grant we've seen every year that we have to share with other agencies? I mean, outside of our county?
I believe that's right, isn't it, Chris?
Yes, sir. There is a Homeland Security Committee's response, communication, EMS. They all come together and we go in together to apply for this grant.
Well, my point is we're not going to get $109,000 if we were awarded it. We'd split that between the other districts or agencies, I guess.
Actually, yes, sir. Smyrna, Laverne, Rutherford County Sheriff's Department, EMS. Yes, sir.
Okay, not outside the county?
No, sir. This is $109,000 that are coming to our county.
That's our portion, right?
Yes, sir. It's our portion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Commissioner Gammon, call the roll.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Commissioner P, it was just handed to me how it is broken down. The total is $749,000. Davidson County gets $298,000. Wilson County gets $54,000. Williamson $115,000. Sumner $112,000. Cannon $51,000. We get the $109,000, and Trousdale County gets $8,000. That's how it's broken down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, I believe we're ready now for the ambulance report.
Everybody. Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if I divert from the way I normally do this and do the budget amendment first? Lisa's doing it for me, and I'd kind of like to get her on her way.
That'll be fine. We'll let Miss Lisa come first.
Commissioners, this is a amendment similar to one we did last year, and this all goes back to when we moved ambulance to electronic timekeeping. About a third of the salaries of an EMT is related to overtime. When we went on electronic timekeeping, we had to split those two into the accounting of that salary. When we budgeted for 1920, we budgeted the same way as we did last year. So I am here tonight requesting the amendment to separate the base pay from the overtime on a budgetary basis. We're already doing that with the accounting of the salaries each time. So it's not any new dollars, it's just the moving out of the emergency services, $1,980,000 from the professional line item to overtime in the emergency services. In the convalescent side, it's $45,000 of the salaries from paraprofessionals to overtime.
Okay, gentlemen, you've seen the request. We have the motion to approve. Commissioner Gammon, do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Gurley. Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 A second amendment is to move $1,200 from the emergency services, $1,200 to motor vehicles, to the convalescent, $1,200, and this is to provide sufficient funding to buy an ambulance. Based on the bids that they received, they're about $1,200 short.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
The motion's been made to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have the second. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Good evening. Director Hudgens would like me just to present some notes and findings from the medical examiner's office. Just a few things that we wanted to provide for you. During July's meeting, we did bring up to the committee's attention that many of our decedents that we were transporting to the Regional Forensic Center were not being examined until 2, 3, or even sometimes 4 days after the date of death and or receipt at the Nashville facility. I'm pleased to report that since that announcement was made, we have seen some positive change. In August, only one of the 32 cases that we sent to Nashville for autopsy experienced a delay beyond 1 day. September to date, unfortunately 6 of the 33 cases, or about 18%, were not examined on the day following receipt at the Nashville facility, so of course we're going to continue to monitor that. We are also continuing to track overdose and substance abuse related fatalities in Rutherford County. We did have an American Medical Association published issue brief provided to us that reports that there does appear to be some increases in opioid-related deaths. They're surmised to being related to the current pandemic. This brief was apparently based on national, state, and local media reports. And I have personally heard reports of several Tennessee counties noticing an increase in these types of a death by approximately 30%. During this pandemic. Preliminary analysis of the Rutherford County cases or data does appear to be reflecting this also, so we will be keeping a close eye on this and we'll report accordingly as we go forward. To continue on the subject of medical examiner case reporting, as included in the EMS report that Director Hudgens has provided, there were 32 cases sent for autopsy in August, and over actually 81 deaths formally reported to the medical examiner's office. To date for September, there's been 33 cases required for performance of an autopsy out of the 76 deaths that have been formally reported to us. Each of these cases does require medical examiner investigators to respond. Those investigators are within the Rutherford County EMS system. They provide and perform an investigation. They generate a written report detailing their observations, initial findings, decision as to jurisdiction, and determination of any appropriate additional examination procedures. This, of course, is done in collaboration and consideration with law enforcement reporting, as well as consultation with our county medical examiner, Dr. McDonald. So to that end, we are continuing to provide in-service education and training for the medical examiner investigators. In order to best equip our investigators, instruction has now been provided through 11 classes since initiation of the program at the end of July this year. Topics have ranged from basic death investigation instruction through more specific and advanced subjects such as firearm-involved death. We have also been seeking joint training opportunities. We were very grateful to Detective Richard Brinkley from the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office for sharing some of his expertise, training, and knowledge during a presentation to us on crime scene response and reporting, both on September 8th and the 10th. We were also pleased to be able to include attendees from other agencies at this event, such as from the fire department and dispatch. So we'll be continuing to provide in-service training for our investigators, as well as arranging some joint training events so that we can pursue our goal of attaining national death investigation standards and ultimately accreditation. Are there any questions for me?
I was waiting for this group to ask some questions. I just knew somebody would, but I really appreciate, great report. I appreciate that. That's information we are needing, and I just think that was really good. Director?
Denise does a real good job. She's been having a lot of the training classes over where my office is, and I read these reports, and there's a significant improvement in the documentation of what our people are doing. And I think once she gets it built the proper way it needs to be, I think we're all going to be very, very proud of the system that we have. Okay, get to the ambulance report. The number of 911 calls we had were 3,017. Number of hospital transfers we did was 32. Total number of calls we had for the month of August was 3,049. Our average response time was 6.6, and we like a tenth of a second of getting that dropped down to 6.5, but I checked it 4 times and I couldn't get it down to 6.5, but I'm still very pleased with this number. The number of DOAs we had were 81. State payments we received on those was $2,025. Number of autopsies we sent were 32. We paid $62,720 for those. Year to date on autopsies we've sent 61, and we paid $119,560 for those. On our collection sides, we billed $1,396,127. Total collections were $747,552. Year-to-date collections is $1,498,658. Projected yearly collections is $8,991,946. And our percentage collection rate is at 81%. Insurance write-offs was $473,666, and the other write-offs were $270,995. And flipping over to the non-emergency side of the ambulance service, we had 459 calls, declined 35. Total billed was $308,481. Total collected was $118,172. Year-to-date collections is at $225,624. Projected collections are at $1,353,744. Got a 96% collection rate. Insurance write-offs was $184,887, and other write-offs were $36,128. And if on the next page is a thank you note. Actually, it's from my wife. Our service had picked up my mother-in-law, and unbeknownst to them at the time of the call, they had no idea that who she was, and the care that they did was excellent. So I tried to instill in these people, treat these patients as if they're my mother. So that's what they did on this, and didn't know that's who it was, but we have a good outcome, and we're very grateful to the paramedics and doctors and nurses who took good care of her. Got another thank you from a patient. The paramedics were Zach Scalf and Ryan Purdom, and that thank you note's attached. And I also got just a little email from Mary Beth at the county nursing home. We've been helping them out quite a bit, dealing with some stuff over there, and we're working together. Even though it's another department, we're all, in this pandemic together, and she just wanted to send out a thank you. And I've got another thank you letter that was, actually it was a visit to our paramedics from a young man that our paramedics had taken good care of, as paramedic Joe McGowan and paramedic Russell Graves. And you can see the picture with the little boy. He wanted to bring them some cookies, and they stopped by the station just to thank the paramedics. And also the Walmart Lifesavers Award was awarded to paramedic Jonathan Renberg and paramedic Derek Horton, and included with that was Melissa Preacher, who is one of our dispatchers. And there's a brief story on that incident, and had a very good outcome. And on the next page you'll see their pictures. I also received a kind gesture from Bedford County. Prior to the COVID-19 hitting our area, one of their paramedics had passed away. I personally knew this paramedic, and so during the funeral, Rutherford County went and covered their county for them. And I sent 5 ambulances to cover Bedford County so all their members could attend the funeral of one of their fallen. And we was very proud to do that, and they had sent us a nice plaque and this letter, and it's on the wall at our Lytle Street office for display. And last month I told you that Steve had committed to getting the CPR and the Aed Training classes going on, and they actually start tomorrow. We've got over 50 so far that signed up, and I expect 200 or 300 more to be signing up for that. I've got about 10 to 12 instructors. We got it. I've been assured it's going to run smooth, and I'm going to trust that's what's going to happen. And also starting October the 1st, I'll be giving flu shots to any county employee that's interested in one. just give me or Steve a call and we'll get you taken care of. So that's my report, sir.
Okay, sir. Any questions? I think you need to put a slogan on all our ambulances that says, "We take care of our patients like it's our mother." I think that, and I think that's a good way to think about it.
Mother-in-law.
I don't think you might want to say mother-in-law. That might not. But I think that's a good way to look at it. That's like, if you're taking care of them like your mother, that you're going to look after them. Any questions anyone may have? I hear a motion to approve the report.
Motion to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Phillips makes a motion to approve. To have a second. Commissioner Sereno, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. And thank you, ladies. All right, I think radio system. No, fire.
Oh, we'll wait and do it down there.
The report for August, we had 6 structure fires, 5 mobile vehicle fires. We ran 278 medical calls. We had 67 MVAs. 32 of those were with injuries. 35 were without injuries. We actually had 4 extrications. We did one water rescue for a total of 505 calls for the month of August. Year-to-date call volume so far this year, we've had 52 structure fires, 22 rubbish, outside rubbish fires, 27 vehicle fires, and we've ran 2,158 medical calls. We've had 475 MVAs, 252 were with injuries, and 223 were without injuries, and we've had 26 extrications. And it seems like extrications has gone up this year for some reason. We've had 18 water rescues for the month of August. Of course, the Snail Shell Cave rescue happened in the month of September, and with the mayor's permission, we had Station 60, which is known as the sort building, responded to that call also with Station 51, and the guys that went down in that cave literally risked their lives. If it hadn't been for their training and rope and rigging and had one of our guys secured when he dove in the water, we'd lost him. So what I want to do at one night at a full commission meeting is have those guys come up here. We've ordered medals of valor that we want to pin on them. And because, I mean, they literally risked it. We have a lot of calls that we call high frequency, low risk. And then you have calls that are low frequency and high risk. And that's one of those low frequency calls that has a high risk to it. And our guys literally put their lives on the line. And so I want to make sure we make a big deal out of that because they went above and beyond what they're required to do. Total call volume year to date is for Rutherford County Fire Rescue is 4,226 calls. Countywide, including the volunteer fire departments, we've had 121 structure fires, 64 brush fires, 86 illegal burns, 59 vehicle fires, 18 water rescues, and 795 motor vehicle accidents with 29 extrications for a total call volume of 5,252 calls. Next sheet is the damaged property we sent into the codes department, listing those addresses and the dates those fires occurred. And the primary or the first response area is named in the fire department. One of the things I'm going to bring your attention to is as we continue, y'all helped develop our fire investigation unit. In August of 2020, the Rutherford County Fire Rescue's Department's arson Fire Arson Investigation Unit was granted membership to the ROCIC. The ROCIC is one of 6 regional information sharing systems centers that serving thousands of law enforcement members, agencies in 16 states of the United States. ROCIC and RISS program offer law enforcement agencies and officers a full range of services from beginning of an investigation to the ultimate prosecution and conviction of criminals. The summary of services and resources that's provided by this organization is analytical services, digital forensics, equipment loans, publications, and officers training. In summary, the resources that gain through our membership in this department helps our investigation unit. It sets us apart from other fire investigation units across the state and region. We're only one of 2 units of this kind in the state of Tennessee and hold membership in the ROCIC. The benefits of the Fire Arson Investigation Unit membership in this will not only significantly increase our investigation capabilities in cases of fire, arson, explosions, but will also allow us to do so in an effective and cost-effective manner. And I'm sure Commissioner Gammon is familiar with that organization. So we felt very honored that they accept this, and it will help our investigations. The next page is our Arson Report. We did have one involving a juvenile. The training that Public Safety Director Chris Clark referred to a while ago was a Salamander Instant Command training system, and it's a instant command system that we purchased. We did get extensive training on that, and one of the things it allows us to do on a fire scene is to have accountability, to know who's on that scene and where they're at on that scene, where they're maybe inside the structure that's on fire, in rehab or whatsoever. But it's a program we purchased for $1,100 a year, and with that training we've expanded our capabilities. We're going to buy track apps and tag apps, and what this will do, it will put every firefighter in Rutherford County, with the volunteers included, by their name, put them in the system. When they come in to the scene, we scan them, and it puts them in the system, and so it allows us a computerized digital readout where we know where every person is on that scene. Whenever they leave the scene and check out, then we can look at our monitor and know that they've left the scene and that they're no longer on that scene. That's one of the things about instant command and firefighting, especially structure firefighting, is to be able to track our people and know where everybody's at and make sure everybody's accounted for. So that's going to allow us to be more proactive across the county. I'm going to have a meeting here in a couple of months with all the volunteer chiefs. We'll get them trained on it and add their people inside the system. That way we're all on the same page. And that concludes my budget, but I've got a few items. I've got a budget amendment, and I've got some grant requests. That's my report.
Okay. Questions on the report?
I'll say congratulations on ROCIC. That's a good organization, very selective as who comes in. We'd worked with them for many, many years. Great resource, great information.
Our guys were pretty excited about being accepted.
I have a motion to approve the report. Commissioner Gammon, do we have a second? Commissioner Gurley, call the roll, please.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sciarrino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Have a budget amendment. We sold the 2 trucks to Cannon County, and we usually take that money and put it back in equipment. But since we didn't have the money to purchase trucks this year, we've got I'm putting that in $35,000 of it in data processing equipment, $5,000 into data services. One of the things that we are experiencing, EMA's got the same system. I'm working with Cody York. OIT, we have a key fob system that allows us in our stations. That system is obsolete. You can't buy parts for it anymore. Cody is working to come up with something that will be interlocked into their system, And so I told him I had put $35,000 toward that system if he could find it. And so he said that would greatly help us to be able to achieve that. And then the other $5,000 is for to have our SOGs and policies through a company called Lexipol to make sure that all of our policies meet legal requirements, state and local, that they are what they need to be. My budget amendment.
Okay, you have a amendment to a motion to approve this amendment?
Move to approve the amendment as submitted.
Commissioner Gurley moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Sciarrino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Okay, the County Commission adopted the 2018 International Fire Code on January 17th of 2019. I'm requesting that the County Commission amend that resolution by adopting the entire section of Appendix B, which is the fire flow requirements for buildings in the 2018 International Fire Code. When we first did this amendment, we only adopted Section B103, which was adopted on January 17th. And the entire Appendix B provides a tool for use of jurisdictions in establishing a policy for determining the fire flow requirements in accordance to Section 507.3 of the International Fire Code. The determination of required fire flow is not exact science, but having some level of information provides a consistent way of choosing the appropriate fire flow for buildings throughout our jurisdiction. The primary tool used in this appendix is a table that presents fire flow based on construction type, the building area based on the correlation of insurance services, and method and construction types used in the National Building Code. What we're using now is the system from the International Services ISO fire flow method, and the reason I want to change it to the International Building Code is because SEC, Huddleston Steel, and a lot of the organizations we work with, when they are building a new building, they need the fire flow requirement for that building based on the type of construction and size. They have to have a letter from CED before they'll grant that person water, and that information has to come from me. So Murfreesboro Fire Department, their codes department has adopted this, and so I want to adopt it too. So people like Matt Taylor and Jamie Reed, the guys I work with, will be dealing with the same system. They don't have to have two different fire flow systems. So I'm asking them that we would adopt that and make it that way we're same across the county.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. P.
Mr. Chairman, got a question for Chief Farley there. How would this change affect any future ISO ratings?
It doesn't affect the ISO rating at all. What it does is when you adopt the International Fire Code, whenever a new construction of a building comes up, whether it be commercial, then they're required to have a fire flow requirement. In other words, how much water would it take to control that fire based on construction type and size. And then when they send me that information, I look at the plans and the plot, and I send that letter to CUD stating what that property is and what the fire flow requirement is. Then CUD takes that calculations, and based on what they can do, they tell that contractor or architect where they can provide that water supply in that area. So basically, you say somebody wants to build a commercial building out in a rural area that has a 6-inch water line, and CUD cannot provide that water requirement to control that fire, then we can mandate that they sprinkle that building. So basically, it just kind of gives us an idea, let CUD know if they can meet the fire flow requirement. So it really actually helps the ISO rating as far as making sure that the buildings are protected, because anytime we sprinkle a building or any building in Rutherford County that is sprinkled, the ISO looks at that building like it doesn't exist. So it actually helps us.
Thank you.
This has been covered with the planning department has this been talked about with planning, or they have an issue, or?
Well, really, it doesn't affect the planning department because Mike and them doesn't deal. Of course, they deal with the runoff water, and basically what happens is they go through the planning process and y'all approve it, and then the first thing they call me is, okay, is enough water in that area? Well, most of the time it provides domestic water, but it doesn't provide the fire flow requirement. And a lot of times that may be where they may have an 8-inch line or 10-inch line, and that can handle as far as installing a fire hydrant. If there's enough fire flow there, then all I got to do is require a hydrant or 2 hydrants. In some cases, if you have a industrial facility, you can make them put fire hydrants 500 feet all around the warehouse. So that's basically all it does. It just covers the fire part of it. Make sure that when my guys get there or the volunteers get there, they have the water resources they need to fight that fire.
Other questions? Have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Okay, we had a FEMA grant, and they finally have decided to reconsider our application for an extension on the 2017 fire prevention grant. This was held up significantly by COVID, but they have instructed us to resubmit our application. So in light of that, I wanted to get approval through public safety and budget. The extension is no cost a no cost extension on a 5% matching grant. The balance on the grant is $80,108, which makes the county's matching obligation $3,815. And if approved, this grant would be extended through March 30th of 2021. It would allow us to resume our alarm canvassing with full-time people, paying them to cover areas of canvassing. And also it would give us the opportunity for advertisement, with putting it on billboards, advertising movie theaters, to get the word out there that we have free fire alarms we want to install.
Any questions on the?
All you're asking for is permission to apply for the grant.
Well, basically it's an extension. We already received the grant, and we want to extend it, and they'll allow us to extend it. But there's going to be a match on that, so there's money involved, so I want to get that approved.
Thank you.
More questions? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
One thing that grant does do, it allows us to work with Las Casas, Kittrell, Allenville, and Christiana in their areas, and when we do a canvassing on a Saturday, we include them in it, and they go out with us, and they actually get to help us install fire alarms, so that it kind of gets them in touch with their community too. So it's kind of a partnership on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Rogers.
A quick update. We continue to move forward with training and deploying of radios. We just wrapped up some civil work at EMS dispatch and the sheriff's office last week, and we hope to complete the microwave loop this coming week and next week. But unfortunately, the hurricane business is keeping our vendors busy in Florida, so that's kind of delaying us a little. But we're continuing to move forward. We're looking like now towards the end of the project is going to be January, but we're also starting to prep the base radios for fire and EMS stations. That's going to be our next step. And that's all I have for today.
Any questions on the radios? If not, appreciate your report. Thank you, sir. All right, OSHA. I believe Mr. Elam. There he is.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Reed and Commissioners. The OSHA report for the month of August, you'll see there's a total of 22 accidents. For the calendar year, you'll see 104. Total recordables, 74. Restricted day claims, there's 45. Lost day claims, there's 13. Other recordables, there's 16. If you move on to the graph on the next slide, you will see on-the-job injury claims. In the year 2018, there was 169, 2019, 172, and for 2020, there's 104. I'm going to come back to that number in just a second. On the next one, you'll see on-the-job injury incurred dollars, and these are, once the claim is filed, what they anticipate the claim to cost. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the cost of the claim. And then sometimes you can have a back injury and they may put down $50,000 for that claim, but then after some physical therapy, it drops drastically. But anyway, based on the information they have, that's the incurred dollars. 482 compared to 343 2019 compared to 342 2018. Now I want to go back just a second to the claims that you see. There's 104 compared to 172 last year. And there's a spike that you'll see on this graph. In those claims, what the investigating and looking at those numbers and these claims, there's fewer claims, but the severity of the claims are up just a little bit. The next thing I have is where the injuries were. For the Board of Education, you have 11. County General, you have 11. And the County General for the Sheriff's Office, you had 6. JDC, you had 1. Correctional Work Center, you had 2. EMS, you had 2. The next page that you have, injury, illness, statistics, recap. Commissioner Phillips, I can't remember if it was this committee or if it was the Benefits and Insurance, but he requested this report, and I apologize. This should have been sooner, but I'm glad you brought it to our attention. So a couple of things I want to mention. The state has not got out the state incident rate for 2019 yet, but I'll go back to 2018. You'll see the county's total incident rate at 3.09 compared to the state at 4.4. In 2019, you see the rate at 3.05. Interesting, just one of the things I will point out is when you look at the man hours for Rutherford County total is 11,658,204. Chairman Reed, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elam. Any questions on the report? If not, and do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to approve. Commissioner Phillips, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Commissioner Sereno, please call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Kirby Court report.
For the month of August, you will see that we accepted 8 new participants into our programming. You'll also see that we had 5 graduate from our programming. I wanted to give you guys an update on the recertification process at the state level. All of the paperwork that was required was turned in by the 15th of September. When I touched base with the state at the end of last week, they feel like they'll do their in-person meeting with us and do their audit toward the end of October, but they have not given us a date. We were a recipient of a SAMHSA grant, and I know that there's been some discussion about the no-cost extension. We did get word back, I think at the beginning of last week, that that was approved. I will be working with Reba Carlton to establish a budget amendment once that comes, once we get some clarification from the SAMHSA person at the federal level. There was a difference in the budget they gave us back versus the budget we submitted, and we just needed some clarification so that we could do that amendment. We also have a VTC2 grant that we received a one-year extension plus an additional $24,000. I think it went in front of the commission last week and was approved. I've been working with Reba and spoke to Lisa about that as well, so that it was already budgeted in. So Lisa said that we didn't have to do an amendment until we started needing to move things around. One of the things that I wanted to just brag on our office about just a minute is that when I first started, of course, it was coronavirus and people weren't coming into the office as much, and we were trying to keep a minimum of people in the office at any given time. But what I have really seen is that clients are making it their safe place. If you come up to our building at any given time, there are clients there. It's not because they have to be a lot of the time. We have at least 4 or 5 that stop in every day on their way to work just to check in, just to make sure everything's okay, to hit a meeting, to get paperwork submitted somewhere. And they've sort of made it their safe spot. And I think that that's important for our community. It's important for the neighborhood where our office is located, but even more so for the people that are really in need of just some human interaction that doesn't involve drugs or alcohol. I think it speaks volumes to where their head's at in recovery, and I'm very proud to say that about our office. And I believe that is my report.
Okay, any questions? If not, they have a motion to approve. Motion approved. Commissioner Gammon. Have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Please call the report for the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner, Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. All right, probation report.
So, our August report, our total expenditures for the month of August was $125,397.45. The total revenue collected by the county clerk's office or circuit clerk's office was $7,963.37. A combined revenue of $20,788.37, with the difference with the expenditures for the month totaling $104,609.08. The amount of money turned over for the month of August to the clerk's office totaled $15,695 to be collected on payment agreements. The amount of money that was not, or those that failed to enter a payment agreement, that amount totaled $12,165. For the total fiscal year so far, the amount of money that's been turned over to the clerk's office is $27,381.50. And the total underneath that, that's the money that those that have failed to enter a payment agreement for the fiscal year so far. And that totals $25,042. And that would be my report.
Okay, any questions? Have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Gurley, you have a second? Second. Commissioner Gammon, please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, we're down now to other business, and I believe Mayor, I believe you're on now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, Sonia is our ADA compliance officer for the county, and we, for a little bit of time, been working with Kittrell, and of course, with the volunteer fire department. We own the building where they have the country ham and breakfast, and unfortunately, had a wind shear and took part of the roof off, so it's under construction. I believe the new roof was on, Saturday before last when we were out there for the ham breakfast. But they're out of compliance. The building's out of compliance to be ADA accessible because the restroom, a wheelchair cannot get into the restroom. So we were able to get some information worked up. We got a company called R3 Contractors. They have given us a bid to put in a restroom with a sink and a toilet, no shower. The price on that came in at $31,222.54. There's been some talk, and I talked to Assistant Chief Joe Barrett today. He doesn't think that it's a good idea, but there was some talk about swapping the old gymnasium that's out there with their current building, because the school board has control of the old gym, and it's just full of old desks and equipment from the school board. Deputy Chief Barrett thinks it would be too expensive to go in and retrofit that building, even though it does have showers. It does have men's and women's restroom, as opposed to one in this other building. So that's what we're looking at as far as the cost is concerned. I will throw out to you, is it something, and I talked to Chairman P earlier today, is it, before we expend this $31,000 some odd dollars for retrofitting that building, do we start the conversation of building a new building for Las Casas and for Kittrell? That would be a combination building. That's our plans right now for Rockville, so why not include Kittrell? Because the CTAS study that we got this past year designates Rockville as number 1 greatest need and Kittrell number 2. So I'm throwing it, Mr. Chairman, in front of the committee. Is it time we start that discussion, or do you just want to rock on and put in this restroom?
Mr. Gurley?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, that seems a bit on the high side. I just had a total bathroom renovated back in the spring before COVID hit, and there was a lot of nice tile work and all that done, and I can tell you that I spent less than $31,000. And I mean, it just seems to be a bit on the high side for a bathroom renovation, even ADA compliant, because I know what it takes to make it ADA compliant. And
yes, sir. I thought it was on the high side too, and of course, before we move forward, we would have to put this out to bid and get 2 more quotes. Maybe we could get hold of your contractor if you didn't pay that much. Does the committee feel it's time that we start discussing building and then go to the bond market this next year, because it would take that long? We'll be into next year before this ever starts, building the combination ambulance, fire department, where there's a kitchen and lounge in between the two, fire on one side, ambulance on the other. Is it, you want to go down that direction? Of course, we are looking at Rockville. We've already gotten permission to put it on the front lawn to the right of the elementary school in Rockville from Mr. Spurlock. So that would be right on the main road of Highway 99 to put that type of building is what we want to do.
Commissioner P., what have you got to say?
Well, I'd say that our community would welcome a new fire and EMS station. The location would not be at the existing fire hall, but, the study that came out that Kevin did, it was somewhere around the Mount Herman Road area, which we've got a temporary station close to there, but there is a need for us to have a station in that location. So I personally would like to see us pursue this and, maybe take some bids, and from the one in Eagle, maybe we'll get an idea of what it cost us, because we're talking about mimicking our stations. So we've got fire and EMS in each station, plus a room for our sheriff's department deputies to come in also. So I definitely would welcome that, and I'd like to see, cost estimates come out.
I'd like to make a motion, we move ahead and start reviewing and look at the bond issues and other things that may need to be done. That may not be the way it needs to be said, but I make a motion, we move ahead.
I'll second that if you need a motion.
So let me get clarity. The direction you're giving us is to move forward on both Rockville and Kittrell?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We're way into next year's budget, but we got to start somewhere, so we will hold up on this expenditure of the $31,000 for the bathroom if we're going to go down that road.
As everybody knows, those communities have given sweat and blood and everything else. So, we're in a position, we got to look at it. We're getting bigger, not going to get smaller. And it would probably, I think it'll better prepare them to move to the future and show the appreciation.
Commissioner P., that property you were speaking of, is that where your second station is located?
We have a second station that's, gosh, I'm trying to think of the road. I'm brain dead at the moment, but it's within a mile or so of Mount Herman.
Is that property?
It's further in, closer to town, where our second location is right now.
So, is that the property that Mr. Stroop owns?
That's correct.
Okay. Robert Stroop. So it might be worth reaching out to him to see if he, I don't know if we want to buy that property. Maybe he'll donate it. I don't know. But I think we can, with this motion, it'll get the ball rolling and we'll start moving in that direction if that's the will of the committee.
Okay, you've heard the motion. You've had a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Gurley,
Yes.
Mr. Sciarrino,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. P.,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would just like to say that, that I have to stand up for Hamilville. We're in need. That area has probably got more growth in terms of than, not necessarily than Rockville, but definitely than Kittrell. And I'm not negating the need. I just like to say that we need to keep in mind, once we get this going, and I've seen the CTAS report, and it basically said what I'm saying, we need to continue on, because we've got out at that 840 Almaville Road area is beginning to mushroom, and I think it's going to continue, and especially we've got a big project coming before the Planning Commission this coming month, right out in that area. That'll make it even more so. But I think if we get this study, start getting some firm numbers on what it's going to cost to build the buildings, et cetera, then we'll have, like the schools have done, we'll have a template to move forward and replicate in other areas on.
Yes, sir. That's our intent, is once we have a design that meets needs of both fire and ambulance, is just to replicate that on property that we already own. Don't want to buy the property, so that saves us money there. We did meet last Thursday, I believe, Chris wanted to meet, or the 4 chiefs wanted to meet with Chris. I was here, but we were able to get through with Public Works, and I was able to leave and get there in time for the meeting to start. And so we talked to your chief down in Almaville, and we actually were talking before the meeting started about the old school down there where our convenience center is located. Might be a good location because it's going to be close to 840, and putting this type of facility down there for them once we start moving in this direction. Christiana will probably be next, and then Walter Hill, but at least we've got the schools willing to give the property to locate these type facilities for us as we move in that direction.
Okay, well, I think, Mayor, I think we have some other, I think we've gotten into this a little earlier, that deals with the Emergency Communication District.
That is correct, and I believe this is an authorization request. Members, you'll see on your SharePoint. Director Smith is in the audience with us. He's here. At the September meeting, the Board of Directors of Rutherford County Emergency Communications District, the 911 Board, requested that the attorney draft a resolution forwarded to each municipality and Rutherford County. The purpose of the resolution is to request authorization for United Communications to overlash. Remember back in Boy Scouts, you used to make a wallet and take 2 pieces of leather and you lash it, and the leather goes to the outside back down in the hole. It's overlashing. So what this would do, they're asking permission to overlash the IZzyNet, I believe. Steve, why don't you come on up? Director Steve Smith from 911, he can explain the purpose of this fiber optic cable that will go from Murfreesboro to Laverne. Am I correct? If you'll explain that to the members, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I'll try to be brief. I think you may have the background material previously, but the mayor has explained it very well. In the national arena of 911 now, technology, just as you talked earlier about GIS and computer-aided dispatch and other applications, our industry is moving to what is referred to as an Emergency Services Information Network, or we all have plenty of acronyms I know to keep up with, but we refer to it as an IZzyNet. And as a matter of fact, Rutherford County just became the first district in the state to migrate to AT&T's new nationwide IZzyNet, which is going to be improving in, as far as location and other information that can be transmitted to 911 centers as the consumer market brings more things such as text to 911 and things like that. So as the mayor said, at the September 11th meeting of the Board of Directors, they requested that our attorney, Mr. John Rogers, draft a resolution for your consideration, as well as the other municipalities, with the exception of Eagleville, because this project does not reach Eagleville right now. A little bit about the background. In 2000, there was an intergovernmental agreement entered into between Rutherford County and the municipalities to construct a fiber optic connection between Murfreesboro and Laverne. We have, as the 911 district, entered into an agreement with United Communications to utilize a portion of that fiber that currently exists running from Murfreesboro to Laverne to connect all of our public safety answering points, all of our 911 centers onto this ESI-net. So at this point, we're coming to you because of the governance of that was deemed to be under the authority of what I believe is referred to when it was created as a technical oversight committee, and that's representatives from those bodies I just mentioned. So we don't have the authority to grant United Communications, who we currently are under an agreement with to help us build out this ESI net, to overlash. That's under the authority of this technical oversight committee, I believe, is the consensus of all of the legal reviews. And in working with them, we've come to a point where we're needing to move with an alternative in the area from the Smyrna city limits on 4170 all the way to Laverne Police Department. Those poles are property of the Nashville Electric Service. So the problem that we've encountered, say not only due to the tornadoes that affected Nashville, but certainly the impact of COVID, is processing those permits for United Communication to use those poles to connect to. But the alternative, as the mayor just informed you, is the overlash, which is will provide us the remainder of that link we need from the city limits of Smyrna to Laverne. So that's my quick summary, and I again appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for letting me come to the agenda tonight, because this is somewhat of a time-sensitive project, and you've heard about some GIS matters already tonight. So this is an important project for the entire community, the entire county. As I said, this Emergency Services Information Network will transmit those things to come in the future that we'll see come down, as we say, the 911 pipeline. And so that's my summary, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
So a quick synopsis is that you're wanting our approval to jointly, all municipalities in the county, to authorize another fiber to be strapped underneath the existing one, basically.
Yes, sir. Even though it's in the domain of the city of Laverne, this technical oversight committee that you see was created, I believe, has the authority to authorize that. And so we have sent a...
That would be in lieu of getting NES's permission to actually attach that fiber mechanically separate to it, and this is kind of a quick way around that.
That's exactly right. This is an alternative backup. If NES called tomorrow and said we're caught up, we'll be moving in another direction.
I move to approve this request.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second.
Well, let's
Mr.
go to
Chairman,
budget. And then
is there any
commission.
cost?
Commissioner Phillips and then Commissioner P.
Well, let's go to budget and then to the full commission.
It'll be forwarded to budget.
I'm sorry?
Yes, be forwarded to budget. But is there any cost?
There's no cost. It'll
There's
go
no
straight
cost.
to the commission. It should go straight to the commission. There's no cost.
There
is no cost to this, so no, sir, it goes straight to the full commission.
All we're doing is give them permission to do what they got to do. Okay. Commissioner P.
That was my question, if there was an associated cost, and you answered that. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, sir.
Sometimes permission costs you, and fortunately this time it didn't. Permission sometimes costs you. All we're doing is asking for permission. Sometimes it comes with a cost and sometimes it doesn't.
It's being funded by the Emergency Communications District, by the 911
exactly.
district. So this is not any county or city funding required.
That is.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Yes, so the resolution is what we approved here that's on your SharePoint. So the resolution has to be forwarded to Rutherford County, City of Murfreesboro, Town of Smyrna, and City of Laverne. We all agreed to the resolution, pass the resolution, so that's what you're agreeing to, right?
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, sure. Oh, not on that subject.
All right. Anything else, subject-wise?
Yes, sir. This is short notice, but Doug Budgetary contacted me, and of course, he still has his connections with CTAS, even though he's over the school board, and he was looking out for our best interest, and he saw from TDEC an opportunity for all counties to participate in buying large trucks. And so when he called me, I got hold of REBA because it's a 50-50 grant share, okay? And he sent it on over to Chief Farley. Chief Farley looked at it, and we believe that a large truck, a ladder truck, would fall into that category. We're talking $1.2 million for a new ladder truck. But as if you recall back during the budget, because he had a new fire truck for $1 million in his budget, and we asked him to cut it. But now it's presented an opportunity from this TDEC grant who, if you recall, Volkswagen got busted for internationally, or they got busted for the United States because they were tweaking the way they reported their emissions. You remember that big fiasco? So there was $450 million in this fund that can be, how much? So the state of Tennessee is getting $45 million, and so we could apply for the 50-50 grant to get a ladder truck. And I believe Chief Farley, I talked to the chairman about it, and as we continued to grow in areas outside the city limits, you know, first I thought, well, why do we need a ladder truck out in the county? However, Stewart's Creek High School is 2-story. Chairman's High School is 2-story, and if we don't have a ladder truck, they're going to have to fight the fire on the ground.
Yeah, and a high school will be 2-story.
Yeah, it'll be 2-story. So very quickly they showed me the need, you know. So do we give him permission tonight to apply for that grant, which probably get it, but then we're going to have to come up with the $500,000.
I make a motion we move ahead, give him permission to seek the grant.
We have a motion to seek the grant. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Chief Farley, you want to come up and say anything that I didn't say? Maybe some other needs that I didn't address of how a ladder truck would, you know.
Just basically, Volkswagen was tweaking they were falsifying their emissions test, what got them in trouble with the Department of Justice. But Mayor Captain asked me to write a justification on why I thought we need a ladder truck, and if I can find it here. And Commissioner Phillips and Pettis Commissioner Reed, excuse me, Chairman Reed will know where I'm coming from, because they see a lot of these things. But with the continued growth in the county, we're seeing more industrial warehouses and large homes being built. There are plans to build an industrial warehouse at Silver Springs Road and 840. When it's all said and done, phase 1 and phase 2, there will be 2 million square feet under roof. This is supported by a 48-inch water line running down 840 and a 20-inch line running down Silver Springs Road. So of course, with the industrial plant, as tall as it is, if we were to have a fire there, we wouldn't be able to handle it with our resources. There's a large industrial warehouse on Butler Road, and that's in our jurisdiction. We also have a large office complex on Neelam Road that's 2-story. Epps Mill Road has Love's Truck Stop. Thornton's has submitted plans to build another large truck stop on the site of the former outpost, the Armory. There's also plans for another fuel station that Planning Commission approved this morning on the corner of Epps Mill and Miller Road. The area will continue to expand due to the CUD's new 16-inch water line that runs down Epps Mill Road, Miller Road, and under Interstate 24. This new water line will also feed the new Christiana schools out there off Plainview and in that area. There are plans to add homes and townhomes in the Buchanan Estates subdivision. This is off Ellsmere Road. Many homes now have 0 lot lines, and the front door and the garage door are on the first floor and the living quarters on the second floor, which a lot of these buildings, and you got 4,000 and 5,000 square foot homes. These buildings are too big to fight with hand ladders. Rockville schools. Of course, these factors for us consider purchasing a ladder truck, which I feel like it won't benefit our ISO rating 5, but if we don't move this process, it's going to affect our ISO because we won't have the equipment we need to attack these big, large buildings. It'll give us technical rescue uses to improve responder and victim safety, increases firefighter safety by operating from an aero ladder versus operating from a ground ladder, which was being ineffective. The ability to be self-supporting instead of having to contact other agencies for a standard call. I'm figuring 1.2 million. I think we can do it. I think we can do it for $1 million, but with price increases, hopefully 1.1 million. It's just one of those things. We looked at one the other day. The guy come through town and demoed it, and it was a stuff, and it was right at $1 million. That's a lot of truck. The grant will be awarded. The deadline for the grant is October 30th, 2020. Grants are awarded. I think they'll be awarded either the end of this year or first of next year, and we have over a year to receive the truck. This will also benefit and help to keep the ISO rating across the county for us and also in the volunteer responding areas also. And
yeah, I think, you know, we think we have to have a multi-story building to make a good use of a ladder truck, but a lot of times a real hot fire that you can't send guys into. I saw this 2 houses down from me, a log house burnt. Smyrna responded to it. Smyrna had 2 ladder trucks. Took 6 hours to put the thing out, and a lot of water. There's no way Smyrna would have ever sent anyone into that structure as hot as it was burning to fight that fire, and they could have fought it from the outside, but not nearly as effective as they were with the ladder trucks and streaming down onto that structure. So I think as we grow, we're going to see a lot of structures that get big, and you don't want to get a guy trapped inside. You don't want to go in, and you just simply can't attack it from the outside, but you can attack it from the above. And so I see a lot of uses for the truck, whether we have multi-story buildings or not. But especially as we get these big warehouses, you mentioned 840 and Sulphur Springs. Well, it wouldn't surprise me it's coming to 840 and Amelville in the not too distant future. We're seeing it all up and down the 840 corridor. So yeah, I'm for it.
one of the things too, if you have a structure that has an advance in the fire and it caves in on itself, it reserves our manpower. It wears our guys out. We can pull them back, set the ladder truck and just ground it. So it really helps save our manpower on the ground and from just totally wearing them out, having to dig through all that. So there's a lot of advantages to it.
I got two questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
So, Chief, do we have a bay large enough to put the ladder truck in?
We can house that at Barfield.
Okay, it's large enough to...
40, I think the one we looked at is 40 foot long and 44 foot long, and Barfield is actually 56, I think. Wow.
Okay, I didn't want you coming back saying we need to add on. You know?
And that, I think we can probably put it over at on Fortress, but I don't know when it comes out if it can make that swing around, go around the building.
I remember Moore County, Jack Daniels gave Moore County a fire truck, and it was longer than their bay, so they had to go back and ask for money.
We spec it out, I promise you, I'm gonna have the dimensions of our building, and I'm gonna say this, it can't be no longer than this right here. So.
Okay. So, second question is, okay, so the grant is due by October 30th.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how long would it take to build it?
Well, we'll probably buy it on a HVAC contract. Usually, if we order one, we usually do when we get the money.
Do we buy it on?
We spec it out. We'll spec it out, and then I think we can have it. You got a year to receive the truck, so we can do that well within a year.
Do we pay on delivery, or do we pay an exception of the contract?
We pay. Most time when we buy those trucks, they have it that when they pull up in the county at the station, I hand them a check.
Okay, so it could be in the next budget year, right?
Yes. It would be in the next budget year by the time we spec it out and
okay,
and get it, build it and have it here.
Okay. I didn't want to have to.
Right now, it probably would still be 7-8 months. So we've got plenty of time.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
That's good to know.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. P.
One thing I'd like to point out is, I know in the volunteer districts, we always identify structures that would call for a truck like that. For instance, in Kitchell's district, Heatcraft was one. There's several horse barns. And of course, there's some 3-story houses. And I think that you see that in all the volunteer districts throughout the county. But something that we could do is, if a call comes in on one of those structures, we could automatically have that dispatched back to Rutherford to do mutual aid. So that would be a plus for all the districts.
Yeah, Commissioner P, we can also have those locations checked in to dispatch, so when they do come in, it automatically will dispatch the ladder truck.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Phillips.
Just a quick comment. The property on Sulphur Springs Road, I believe that's the industrial park that's proposed and will come before the Planning Commission in October.
Well.
And also, just a note, there were over 290 units, final plats approved at the Planning Commission this morning, 290. And with the proposed Burgess property, I think there's going to be over 1,100 proposed next month that will start in the process. Absorb that for a second. We approved 290 today, and that's huge, and I mean huge. But the proposed development that's coming before the Planning Commission next month is 1,100 new units in that area that Commissioner Gurley was talking about a little bit earlier. Hang on.
When they started that building out there on Ocala, all those homes, there was going to be 800-something homes. I approached former Mayor Burgess and said, we need to build a station out there on Alma Road, right there where the convenience center is. And then Alma's got a truck out there in that old building. It's about to fall apart. And he said, it'd take 10 years for that to get built up. It's almost there. And so there's going to be a big demand for more volunteer firefighters and more equipment and more trucks.
I'm not saying any of that's going to be approved, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying it's coming before the Planning Commission.
And you know as well as I know, it's not slowed down. During COVID, the construction was still running wide open. So they're coming. How many a day are they coming here, Mayor? 28 a day? What's the estimate?
Yeah. Commissioner Phillips, Dale Webb, the above 55 and above for Mayor Burgess's property, I think they are interested in building a fire hall.
Well, they actually met with me and Carl and Chris, and they've donated a piece of property right there on Franklin Road for us to build a fire hall right there. They had been dealing with Murfreesboro, and I think there were just too many regulations and stuff, so they never could get nowhere, so they pulled back and brought it to the county. And I've seen the development plan on it, and there's a piece of property right there on Franklin Highway that would service, and they've also got it set up we can come in off. We can also come out on Franklin or go out on that road to service that area. So it's they got their hearts in the right place anyway.
We're familiar with that piece of property and some proposed development on it before, which was the school complex. It's a challenging piece of property, and once again, the approval for that is no sure thing, but it is coming before the Planning Commission. October 12th, if I remember right.
That whole area out there has some runoff issues, does it not?
there's a lot of issues with that piece of property. It's pretty decent farm property, but as far as developing, it's got some serious issues that need to be addressed. And I'm sure they will be addressed, but the approval for that is, once again, no sure thing. And the Planning Commission has its work cut out for it in October. Y'all say a prayer for us.
I've got a big wagon to pull.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? If not, yep. Hang on. We're about the last ones left for the dance, it looks like, but
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I got this did I get this today? Friday. This is a contract that is ongoing. It renews every year. Payment for mental health evaluation and treatment services for criminal defense charged with misdemeanors only. So it's this started back in June 26th of '09. Judges in general sessions, criminal, and circuit courts have the authority to order mental health evaluation treatments for criminal defendants, was signed into law, making counties responsible for the cost of outpatient, inpatient mental health evaluations and treatment court ordered for defendants charged only with misdemeanors. The Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse makes these services available through outpatient provider contracts and inpatient services at the state's mental hospitals. We have a lot of that. So by resetting this agreement, the rate charged is between $861.52 and $1,139.49 per day pursuant to statute. Enclosed, you'll find a contract that for your county that would establish per diem rate for inpatient mental health evaluations ordered by courts in your county at $450 per day beginning July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Without the reset rate contract, we will have to charge your county the higher statutory rate. I'm sorry?
Mr. Chairman.
This is a renewal, and I believe it's already in the budget, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner P.
Yeah, we played this game with the state before. You know, they used to cover all that, and I'm glad to see that they're offering us a cut rate. But the thing I want to caution us all on, and I want to ask the mayor, do they stipulate a maximum number of days for those evaluations? Because that's what happened in the past. The state had a limit on how many days they would allow for evaluations, but they didn't put a limit on how many days the judges would have for the county. And it ended up, we had one patient that cost us almost $200 million on evaluation. So we had that changed. And my question is, does this stipulate how many days maximum that they can have for those evaluations?
All it talks about, Mr. Chairman, is the rate, the assessment rate, and then it says the procuring party shall pay the state within 30 days. Afterwards, it doesn't say how many days they can charge us for. I think is what you're asking.
That is what I'm asking. Yes. I know we kind of had a gentleman's agreement with our judges that they would keep a close eye on how many days were allowed for those evaluations, but that's something we probably need to look into. I agree that we need to go ahead and okay this because the rates are lower, but that's something we need to watch out for.
We'll check on that tomorrow, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you need a motion on that, Mayor?
Yes, sir. I do.
To sign it, we need to give a motion to sign that.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve that rate But I would like to stipulate that we check to see if there's a limit on how many days they can charge or
Yes, sir.
go.
Okay.
Okay. Did I have a second? Have a second, Mr. Gammon. We hadn't called the roll call. Any discussion on this? If not, call the roll.
Excuse me, Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
And Chairman Reed?
Yes. I'm being told we didn't call the roll on the ladder truck. So I'm getting ready to call the roll on the ladder truck.
The TDEC 50/50? Yeah.
I thought we did.
Are you sure? All right, I got 3 people back here texting, we didn't do it. You called roll?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, you got your truck, you can go home.
Thought I remembered voting on it, but you know, it's getting late.
Okay.
And us old folks like to go sleep every now and then. Anything else? If not, we're adjourned.